With the Eternals headed to the silver screen, the sorceress known as Sersi is about to become a big deal to Marvel fans. But who is this ancient superhero, and what's her story? From the Odyssey to the Avengers, this is the history of Marvel's Sersi explained. The first run of Eternals begins with Icarus on an expedition with a scientist named Daniel Damian and his daughter, Margot. Icarus explains the threat posed by the race known as the Deviants, who, like the Eternals, were created by the Celestials. But where the Eternals are good, powerful, and kind, the Deviants are cruel, hideous, and prone to mutation. Knowing a war is coming, Icarus takes Margot to Sersi so that she might keep the mortal girl safe in her chic Manhattan apartment. Sersi agrees to do so and proceeds to blow Margot's mind by reminiscing about the time she turned Odysseus's crew into pigs, as well as the time she taught Merlin during her stint at King Arthur's court. Margot is, of course, floored by all this, especially since Sersi appears to be little more than a gal about town who's prone to practicing her dance moves during idle hours at home. When the Deviants attack her apartment, however, Sersi further reveals her skills as a warrior, barraging her foes with cosmic energy, blocking their blasts of flame, and transforming them all into animals. Old habits die hard, apparently. Sersi is legendary for her parties, and these shindigs aren't just fun either, as they often serve the plot of the stories in which they appear. For example, during one particularly raucous gathering, Sersi is introduced to Marvel heroes such as the Wasp, She-Hulk, and Star Fox, who she learns is a fellow Eternal. The party is interrupted when the Eternals attempt to summon her to participate in the Unimind, a kind of merging of their souls, but she ignores it. Undaunted, the Eternals, known as the Delphin Brothers, crash the party. Sersi is made to join the Unimind, which results in the Eternals deciding to leave Earth. Sersi refuses to go along with this, however, as she enjoys living among humans way too much to leave. This encounter puts Sersi on the Avengers' radar. When Captain America needs help finding a bunch of kids in 1989's Captain America number 355, he turns to Sersi to transform him into a teenager. Later, in Avengers number 314, she actually joins the Avengers at Cap's invitation. It just goes to show you, one great party can change everything.
Avengers!
After the Eternal and Avenger known as Gilgamesh is severely injured, his teammates turn to Sersi to help heal him. His condition is beyond her abilities to fix, but she does later agree to join the Avengers in his absence. Facing the space pirate Nebula in her first mission, Sersi saves the team from total obliteration and helps restore reality in the process. For a while, things go swimmingly for Sersi. She handles Mother Knight's brainwashing tricks, banishes radioactive foes alongside Thor, and helps a demon called the Unspeakable One merge with his literal better half. All along, Sersi remains her bubbly, whip-smart self, and she proves to be a major team asset, despite how different she is from the rest of the Avengers. In short, Sersi loves the heroics, she loves the people, and she's awfully good at saving the day. But all that changes in her next mission as an Avenger. In a storyline beginning with 1991's Avengers number 334, the team faces an alien race called the Brethren, led by the charismatic Thane Ector. Soon after capturing Sersi, Thane Ector falls in love with her, and she too realizes they have a mysterious connection. It is later revealed that the Brethren are also creations of the Celestials, and the Collector, an old Avengers foe, is manipulating them to destroy Earth. Sersi forms the Unimind with the Brethren to defeat the Collector, despite the fact that forming the Unimind with another species is forbidden to Eternals. Sersi's behavior changes in the aftermath of this event. She becomes more violent and unstable, even as she starts to fall for her fellow Avenger Dane Whitman. Things are thrown into outright chaos when the Avengers get involved in a huge interstellar war between the Kree and Shi'ar, which turns out to be a ruse concocted by the Kree's supreme intelligence. When the Avengers learn of this plot, a breakaway group, including Sersi, kills him, and this tears the Avengers apart. Complicating things further, Dane develops feelings for new teammate Crystal and, against his better judgment, starts a romance with Sersi too. This does little to calm Sersi, who soon grows even more troubled. When the team travels to a distant dimension and fails to stop a young girl from being sacrificed by a priest, Sersi ends up killing the priest in revenge. After killing the priest, Sersi flees to Wakanda. Dane talks her into coming back, but upon her return, she inexplicably attacks the Avengers. She's eventually defeated by an imposter of the Vision, who has been sent to infiltrate the team. It turns out that Anti-Vision is one of the Gatherers, whose leader, the mysterious Proctor, is hell-bent on terrorizing Sersi. Sersi's fellow Eternals, Icarus, Arex, and Sprite arrive and demand the Avengers hand Sersi over to them. Icarus says she is suffering from a form of insanity found in Eternals called the Mad Weary, and that it was probably caused by her use of the Unimind. Now, her fellow Eternals plan to take her home to Olympia and have her cleansed, which means disintegrating her at a molecular level, the Eternal equivalent of execution. The Avengers don't like the sound of this, and a short fight ensues, only ending when Sprite reads Sersi's mind and realizes she's in love with Dane. Without asking his permission, Icarus bonds Dane to Sersi as her Gann Josin, or soulmate. Dane, who had just made a move on Crystal, is forced into following a terrifying imperative: be with Sersi or let her die. Sersi's life continues to spiral out of control, especially after she's connected to the deaths of 2 detectives. And when the police arrive to arrest her for the killings, she responds by leveling Avengers Mansion and destroying the Brooklyn Bridge. Dane remains by her side, forced by their bond into standing with her, until Sersi goes after Crystal, that is. Only then does Dane realize that she needs to be stopped. At this point, the enigmatic Proctor captures her and reveals himself as the Dane Whitman of an alternate universe. He was rejected by the Sersi of his world, so he made it his mission to drive her insane in every other reality, using powers stolen from a Watcher. At last, Sersi knows her erratic behavior is not her fault, but the damage has been done regardless. Sersi kills him with his own ebony blade and exiles herself to another dimension. The Dane of her world, his own mind cleared by Proctor's death, opts to join her. Sersi and Dane enter the Ultraverse of Malibu Comics, home to an alternate Earth and a whole other cast of superheroes. The journey has the desired effect, as Sersi is able to exist dimensions away from Proctor's control and so finally comes to her senses. That clarity doesn't last long, unfortunately, as she's immediately possessed by a heretofore unknown infinity gem called the Ego Gem. Subsequently, the other infinity gems are transported to the Ultraverse, along with the trickster god Loki.
Surprise!
Loki obtains the other 6 gems, and the possessed Sersi sends a superhero team called Ultraforce, led by Dane, after him. When the Grandmaster travels to the Ultraverse to seek his old mind gem, he proposes a contest to Loki. His pawns will be the Avengers, zapped to the Ultraverse, while Loki's team will be Ultraforce. Loki wins, but it turns out that this was all a ruse for Sersi to get close enough for the Ego Gem to reunite with the other legendary stones. The gem becomes a sentient, god-like being named Nemesis. Nemesis combines the 2 universes but can't quite hold them together, and is ultimately defeated when Dane cuts off her crown with the ebony blade. That splits the gems apart once again, reconstitutes the Ultraverse, and gives Dane and Sersi the chance to return home. When they return to Earth, Sersi and Dane don't arrive in the present day. Instead, they find themselves in the midst of the Crusades. Dane's mind winds up in the body of a Crusader ancestor named Eobar Garrington, and it takes Sersi convincing Eobar's spirit to move on before Dane can assert himself. Eobar's best friend and fellow Crusader, Benet du Paris, isn't pleased about all this, as the pair had been on their way to find the Eternal Pharaoh in his Tower of Power. Dane's accidental takeover of Eobar's body spells the end of that quest, angering Benet, who goes on by himself. Benet is then found by the Pharaoh, who turns out to be the mutant supervillain Apocalypse.
I have returned.
He activates Benet's latent mutant powers, and Benet becomes the powerful telepath Exodus. Apocalypse orders him to kill Dane and Sersi, but he refuses to kill his old friend. So as punishment, Apocalypse strips him of his powers and traps him in suspended animation for the next 900 years. Exodus would later be freed by Magneto in an X-Factor storyline from the early 90s. In the end, Sersi and Dane manage to return to their rightful time, albeit once again in different places. The trip tears apart their Gann Josin link too, and Sersi and Dane decide to split up for good. Left with nowhere else to go, Sersi returns to Olympia. At the time, Apocalypse is busy turning deviants into mindless monsters who've begun attacking humans, and so the Eternals pose as a new team of superheroes called the New Breed. Joining them, Sersi takes the codename Mesmer. This lasts until the mischievous Eternal known as Sprite pulls his ultimate prank in the lead-up to the 2006 Eternals series, erasing the memories of every Eternal. As a result, Sersi becomes a mild-mannered party planner, ignorant of her powers and origin. When one of her parties is attacked by terrorists, Makkari, her former lover and fellow Eternal, helps stop them. Iron Man then shows up to question Makkari, who is living an amnesiac life as Mark Curry. Stark recognizes Sersi as a former Avenger, but is shocked to discover that there is no record of her in any of the team's files. As it turns out, this is all a deviant ruse designed to awaken the dreaming Celestial, who has been banished to Earth for speaking out against the abuse of deviants. When Makkari convinces the dreaming Celestial to wait 50 years before passing judgment on Earth, Sersi decides to give up superheroics once and for all. She goes back to her party planning job and, other than occasionally advising the Avengers, keeps her promise to stay retired. In 2018's Avengers #1, the bodies of dead Celestials begin raining down on Earth. Who could have killed these omnipotent beings so easily? As it turns out, it was the final host of Dark Celestials ready to wipe out the Earth for good. The Avengers learn that the Celestials serve a transcendent being called the Fulcrum, and their job is to not only experiment on young worlds, but to destroy them after millions of years in order to reap their energy. The Fulcrum also created a race of insect creatures called the Horde, and the Dark Celestials came about when the Horde infected a number of Celestials. The Eternals learn that their true purpose wasn't to protect humanity after all, but to cultivate them like crops for the good of the Celestials. This realization drives them all mad, leading to each of their deaths. Thanks to Icarus's last words, Iron Man is able to determine a way for humans to form the Unimind. He is then told that something in human DNA can stop the Horde, and the Avengers manage to save the day. Sometime later, Sersi and her fellow Eternals are resurrected by the machines that give their kind their immortality. After a short conflict with Thanos, however, Icarus discovers another horrifying truth behind their existence, essentially that a human being is killed every time an Eternal is resurrected. Icarus decides this process is pretty much unacceptable, and he, Sersi, and their fellow Eternals set out to solve the problem once and for all. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite Marvel comics are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.